This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
You're listening to Talkline with Zev Brenner, America's premier Jewish broadcast on the air since 1981.
And now, here's your host.
Welcome back to the program. I'm Zev Brenner, met Rabbi Daniel Glatstein on the Pesach program. He's a prolific author, speaker, lecturer. He is the rabbi of Kehillah Tiferes Mordechai in Cedarhurst, New York, author of Svarim, including Magid Harakia. But his latest one is dealing with Tisha B'Av, another fast day. It's called Darkness and Dawn. Rabbi Glatstein, a pleasure to have you back.
Thank you, Zev. How are you? Good to see you today.
Good to see you and good to have you back. Now, I love your title, Darkness and Dawn, and I'll tell you why. Because I heard this from Rabbi Melman, who used to be the rabbi of the Lido Beach Synagogue. He's living in the Five Towns right now. And he basically said that the word Shachar and Shachor are the same letters. You give a little kvetch, and you go from darkness to morning to light. And your book deals with darkness and dawn, which I think is the same theme, how Tisha B'Av is a dark period of time, but yet there's a lot of light that's shed through Tisha B'Av. So I'd like you to reflect on that, and I know we'll talk about some of the keynotes, and then Motzei Shabbos, we'll talk a little bit more about some of the interesting things about Tisha B'Av that we should know about.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's an important aspect of Tisha B'Av, not only the darkness, but the dawn, the redemptive quality that is latent in the day. The Medrash tells us that Mashiach is actually born on Tisha B'Av. The Gemara teaches that when the Gentiles entered the Heichal, when they entered the temple, they saw the Keruvim were embracing each other, which reflected the fact that even though Hashem was allowing our temple to be destroyed and he was banishing us, but his love for us was unwavering and immutable. And that's always important to bear in mind, that this is only a temporary situation, but ultimately we have good times in store for the Jewish people. In fact, the Ben Ish Chai teaches that although we read Eicha in a mournful tune, when Mashiach comes, it will change the inflection ever so slightly, where the words can actually have a hopeful and happy meaning. So, for instance, one example he gives is Vayetze mi b'Sion kol hadara, literally. So all the glory left Sion, but it could also be read that when Mashiach comes, all Torah will emanate from Sion as opposed to from the diaspora, which it does today. So Vayetze mibas Sion kol hadara, all glory will exit Sion. That has a positive meaning. That when the redemption comes, all Jewish teaching will emanate from Yerushalayim.
Which we're starting to, because today I think there are more Jews in Eretz Yisrael and Israel than in the diaspora, and I think the amount of Torah that's coming out of Israel is tremendous. So I think we're seeing some of that taking place right now at the beginning.
Absolutely. We're definitely, we hope that all these premonitions and all of this is hopeful to us.
Now, it used to be in days gone by, they made a point of printing the keynotes on paper because they hope to not using it again. I know today we don't really see too many paper keynotes. It's more hardcover, and the books are coming out in hardcover, which means they're looking to preserve it for a longer time. I'd like to reflect on that minute, which I thought was very interesting, where they purposely didn't want the keynotes to last beyond that Tisha B'Av.
Well, look, throughout the ages, no matter how difficult times were, we were always hopeful that this would be the end of the Golus. I'll tell you, my grandfather, blessed memory, was a Holocaust survivor, and we'll talk more about it Motzei Shabbos. But he was in all the dark places. He was in Dachau, he was in Auschwitz, and he said that every day that he was in Dachau, he believed wholeheartedly Mashiach would come that day. So he never lost hope. He never lost faith. He felt even in the darkest times Mashiach would come. I hope Saturday night I'll have an opportunity to tell you where he was thrown into the crematoria, and he had miraculous salvation. So Jews never lost hope. We always look forward to the coming of Mashiach. In fact, my grandfather's last words in this world, at age 106, the first night of Pesach, was, "I'm waiting for Mashiach," and then he left this world. So that's how a Jew lives. A Jew is always hopeful that the redemption is around the corner and Mashiach is here. And certainly we hope that this year will be the last Tisha B'Av.
Yeah, when you're talking about the hope, and that's the beauty of being a Jew in Judaism, is one is not allowed to abandon hope. It's forbidden. That's the
Yeah,
worst
my
thing.
grandfather would say, like, Yiyush is shaloi midas. Giving up hope is really without thought, but we never give up hope. Think about it. The whole fabric of the Jewish people is built on Abraham and Sarah. Abraham was 99 years old. He was infertile. Sarah, the Gemara tells us, was not only an akara, not only barren, but she was an islandess. She had no uterus. And from this infertile couple, we have the entire Jewish people today. So our nation is built on the impossible. So of course we can never lose hope. But that's the definition of our people.
You know, you remind me of it's a thought on we just read about the Ari Miklo, the cities of refuge, where if somebody accidentally kills somebody, you would run to it. So Moshe Rabbeinu created the 3 cities of Ari Miklot on the other side of the Jordan, and for the 14 years that they conquered the land, nobody ever went there. So the question was raised is why weren't anybody who accidentally killed somebody sent to them from the 14 years of the conquest of the land? Why did he build it if nobody's going to use it for 14 years? And the answer that's given is when somebody accidentally kills somebody, they go to the Ari Miklot and they pray for the Kohen Gadol to die. Even if the Kohen Gadol is young, there's still hope. But it's since that Elazar HaKohen, together with Yeshua, was supposed to conquer the land for 14 years, he was going to be alive for sure. So somebody who'd be sentenced to an Ari Mikvah would have no hope because every day he knows it's 14 years. So therefore they wouldn't sentence that because every Jew has to have hope. I think it's a wonderful thought dealing with our concept of hope.
Nice. Yeah.
What else would you like to share with us regarding the Kinos and Tisha?
I want to share one very brief and powerful point. You know, the Churban Beis Hamikdash is not the only subject of the Kinos. Of course, we talk about the Crusades in Kina Chafhei, the 25th Kina. We talk about the burning of the Talmud in Kina Mem Aleph. By the way, I just came back from a Jewish Heritage Tour in France, and I stood at the place where the Talmud was burnt in 1242. We talk about, there are many of the Kinos which we call Tzion Kinos, that talk about the beauty of Eretz Yisrael. And there's one tragedy that I think is conspicuously absent from the Kinos, and amazingly, it actually happened on Tisha B'Av. It's a tragedy that the Abarbanel says was the worst tragedy since the destruction of the temple, and that is the Spanish Inquisition. Inexplicably, there's no mention of the Spanish Inquisition on Tisha B'Av, and it happened on Tisha B'Av.
Because Columbus set sail on Tisha B'Av, right?
Columbus set sail the next day, I believe it was August 2nd, a Friday, 1492. So why would this tragedy not be discussed on Tisha B'Av in light of the fact it happened on Tisha B'Av? The Abarbanel equates it with the Churban, and it's not like we only talk about the Churban on Tisha B'Av. This was a very troublesome question to me, and I believe the answer is a very important idea. And that is in 1492, when the Jews were expelled, talking about 200,000 to 300,000 Jews, the leader of the Jewish people was Rav Don Isaac Abarbanel, who the Beis Yosef calls the Nesher Hagadol, the great eagle. And he issued a halachic ruling that when the Jews leave Spain, they should leave to lively music, which is quite strange. We know we don't listen to live music during the 3 weeks, certainly during the week of Tisha B'Av, and on Tisha B'Av to listen to music. So one of the reasons given was he didn't want the Jews to be despondent and fall into despair, and he wanted to raise their spirits. After all, they were losing all their money and leaving everything behind. But Rabbi Eliyahu Kitov offers an amazing reason why the Abarbanel said to play music on Tisha B'Av, and that is because while in other circumstances, when we left Yerushalayim, that was mournful, but we never mourn leaving the Galus. A Jew never mourns leaving a land that's not ours. You know, we get so comfortable in the Galus and we think, oh, what a great tragedy. They're leaving Spain. Of course it was a tragedy, but we need a little bit of a reality shift. We didn't belong in Spain. That's not our homeland. We belonged in Eretz Yisrael. And a Jew never cries when they leave the Galus. Yes, we will cry when we leave Yerushalayim, and we will cry for the burning of the Talmud, and we will cry for the massacre of communities in the time of the Crusades. But to leave a land, no matter how successful we were, no matter how wealthy we were, no matter how comfortable and to what levels in society we reached, a Jew never cries when they leave the Galus. And I believe that's the reason why we don't mention the Spanish Inquisition on Tisha B'Av, because certainly it was not a positive occurrence for Jewish people, but we can never mourn leaving a land that we don't belong. And that's something that we Jews in America always have to keep in mind. As wonderful as this golden Medina has been for us, this is not our homeland. And this is not where the Jewish people belong. And if there's one lesson to learn from Tisha B'Av, the community of worms in the times of the Crusades suffered the worst fate of any European community. And the Sma records that the reason for this is because when Ezra returned in the time of the Second Temple, he sent word to the community of worms in Germany, no, come back, come join us, help us rebuild the Holy Land. And they said, you know what? You guys go up to your big Jerusalem. We'll stay here in Worms in our little Jerusalem. And because they had that attitude that Worms is where they belonged, the Sma writes, that's why they suffered the worst fate. So one of the most important and basic lessons of the Kinnos is that even though this Gullus perhaps has been good to the Jewish people, it's still a Gullus, and it's not our homeland, and that's not where we really belong. And we have to remember that a Jew belongs in Artseinu HaKadosha, in Eretz Yisrael, and we'll never cry and we'll never mourn when we leave the Galus.
So before I let you go, so shouldn't we take Tisha B'Av as the whole reason Tisha B'Av came out is we despised it, we didn't really want to go, the spies didn't really want the Jews to go, so shouldn't Tisha be the day we make a commitment to leave the Galus and go to Eretz Yisrael and wait for Mashiach there?
Well, look, there's no question that living in Eretz Yisrael is a great mitzvah, but there are many factors that that a person has to consider, and I'm not here to tell everybody where to live and where to move. Especially here, I'm a rabbi here in the 5 towns, but I would definitely say it is a time to consider and to reevaluate a person's station and future and plans for their family.
Rabbi Daniel Glatstein, thank you for joining us. The Rav of Kehilas, the Ferris Mordechai in Cedarhurst, New York, soon to be Jerusalem, but right now it's in Cedarhurst. Right. He's an author of Sefarim, including Magid Harakia, but his latest book is something which deals with fast days and deals with Tisha B'Av, and I suggest everybody get a hold of it. It's published. It's from Art School Publications, right? It's
yes,
and it's called Darkness and Dawn. And Rabbi Glatstein will join us again Saturday night, Motzei Shabbos, Tisha B'Av midnight. We'll look at some stories of the Klosenberger Rebbe and the Holocaust, some other inspirational stories. Even though it's Tisha B'Av, we're looking forward to that. So let me wish you a good Shabbos, and we look forward. We'll speak to you, God willing, as Tisha B'Av begins.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Pleasure to see you again, and have an easy fast.
And we're going to be right back. Don't go away. Stay tuned.
Thank you for listening to Talkline Communications Network, America's leading Jewish radio and TV network since 1981. For continuous, non-stop Jewish broadcasting, please go right now online to TalklineCommunications.com. For more information on all of Talkline's Jewish radio and TV shows, please call 212-769-1925 or email info@TalklineCommunications.com.
Our 24-hour-day listen line is 605-562-5174. That's 24-hour-day listen line, 605-562-5174. Thank you for listening.
Talkline Network Radio, America's longest-running Jewish broadcast network, the voice of the Jewish community.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.